So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to pitch this location. We have a format that we think will make it easy to show you what we have planned and why we think it's a combination of something that's really visually arresting, but it also complements what you're trying to accomplish with the protocols and the exercise routine at the same time. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'm just making a quick video to show you how to use the map and give you an idea of what we have planned. So if you look here under location brief, you can see there's an embedded map. Make it full screen by hitting the little full screen icon up here in the upper right, and that should open it in a new tab. And these are divided into 3 separate layers corresponding to individual shoot days. There's also a transport and accommodation layer. I'll just leave that off for now, but it's got useful information like the airport, hotel location, nearest hospital, rental car, all that stuff. Okay, so let's look at the actual locations themselves. The locations are listed in the order that we'd be shooting. So let's look at Red Canyon. So the Red Canyon run is a slot canyon, and if you've never seen a slot canyon, the real appeal to it, let me just show you the pictures because I think it's easier to explain visually. It's just they're water eroded rock formations. This one has a massive appeal for our purposes because permitting is doable here. Many of the slot canyons that are really cool in Utah, you can't actually get permit for commercial filming for. This one we can from BLM. And it's also wide enough to accommodate Casey jogging through there at a fairly low speed and a camera operator behind him. So perhaps not through the entirety of the canyon, but that's why we've planned the route to start outside the canyon, just because it'll give a sense of, I don't know, anticipation. He can jog along this. It gives a bit of visual variety to the terrain. He can jog along here, explain what the run is all about, get everybody warmed up, talk about the canyon and how it's formed. Then we get to the canyon. It has a kind of cool scenic opening, and then he jogs into the canyon, and we basically go as far through the canyon as possible. And a location scout will let us determine exactly the point at which he'd end. It's just difficult to discern that without being there. So in each of the runs, you can see again the path is highlighted on top of the map, so it's pretty easy to see where exactly he'll be. Then also over here on the side, we have the name of the run itself, the description, which includes the protocol. So in this case, we don't yet have protocol information, but it's easy to update that when we do have it. So it's easy to see which video has which protocol and what the details of that protocol are and the duration of the trip, plus just a little description here of why the location is relevant. Let's take a look at coral pink sand dunes. The cool thing about this is just it's surrounded by red sandstone cliffs, but you have these really beautiful pink sand formations, smaller dunes, but they have some really cool visual appeal, especially with the longer shadows. It just really accentuates the texture there. And while he might not be jogging in the sand, I assume he doesn't want to do a long jog in the sand. And the camera operator's not going to want to do a long jog in the sand. But there's just some cool visual stuff that he can jog alongside of. And even if he's not on the sand or in the water, it gives us a lot to show B-roll wise. And there's just a lot of color and variety and beauty to this area. So. And the cool thing about this spot in Utah is, as I've mentioned, each location is very distinct, but they're relatively close to each other. So we feel like this gives you the most potential for getting a lot of very different looking shots, but not logistically complicating it and having to have weeks of shooting. It's a fairly simple 3-day shoot. So the next one, let's do Toadstool, the Toadstool run. These are similar to the formations found in Goblin Valley. But these are much closer, and we could still do Goblin Valley in the future, but I think the nice thing about this is it's fairly accessible. The length of the run around the hoodoos is on a trail that is about right for what you'd want for a half-hour video, and the formations themselves are just really cool looking, especially if you've never seen anything like that. So let's come back and take a look at the Pariah run. This is an old kind of abandoned ghost town of a movie set, so there's still remnants of the movie set there, which are really cool. And I think could give a lot of fun stuff for the host to talk about as he's jogging up towards it. Anyway, so I'll click on this so you can kind of see that one of the coolest things about this location is these striated mountains behind with these colored bands. So again, there's just so much variety in that area that as he's jogging, he can really give the audience a lot to look at. And so that's day one. So we'd hope to accomplish all of those within the same day. And we've planned for more videos than necessary so that we do have at least one contingency video just in case there's some sort of issue with any one of the locations. So Bryce Canyon we've dedicated its own day to because it's pretty much the most iconic location of this shoot. And Bryce Canyon, if you've never seen it, we've divided it into a rim run and a basin run. But it's an amphitheater of these spiral limestone just really, really cool, dynamic looking rock formations. So you can see the view from the basin is quite a bit different than the view from the ledge is. So from the top looking down into the basin, there's some areas where the terrain varies a little bit more than we might want for the beginner jog, because obviously you're trying to keep the treadmill, or I'd assume you're trying to keep the treadmill fairly flat. So the location that we're anticipating isn't the entirety of the rim run, it's a portion of it that's flat enough that we can get the half-hour duration at the pace that's appropriate for this specific jogging video. But yeah, the nice thing is around the rim of that amphitheater, you have really gorgeous views down into the amphitheater, but then you can also access Bryce from within the structures themselves, looking down from down below up at them. So those are the two locations for Bryce Canyon. And let's look at Grosvenor Arch. So Grosvenor Arch is just a really cool looking arch. Moab, we had initially looked, like I said, at doing some Goblin Valley stuff and some arches stuff in Moab. Permitting for arches takes quite a bit longer, and it's much more restrictive because there are wilderness areas and things that have to be worked around, so it would just delay that video quite a bit. And that's one that we wouldn't want to rush arches. It definitely is one that needs to have time dedicated specifically to it, so that some of the more iconic places there can be well represented. So the nice thing about this is, again, the arches look different geologically than the arches inside Arches National Park. But this one, permitting is easier, and it's accessible. And yeah, again, this location just has a lot of stuff that's close by, and it's visually interesting. So there's a view of the approach to the arch, so you'd have an idea of what we'd be seeing as he approaches. Coxcomb Run. So there's a lot of stuff in this area again. So this is it's a colorful comb of these pyramids. Some people call them Utah's pyramids, but it's just, again, a really kind of gorgeous and lesser known part of this national monument. So having him jog around some portions of this with a lot of what will make these shots more interesting too, just generally speaking, is the use of a little bit more variety. So just slow motion stuff, fast motion stuff, hyperlapse, time lapse, B-roll, changing time, getting a mix of wide and tight shots, doing aerials where possible. Some of the areas are more restrictive in terms of drone use, but there's a lot more we can do when we have areas like this to make it visually stunning. So hopefully that gets you as excited about this location as we are.